your hand. You just heard it. I'm recording this this workshop or this webinar. Zoom has now this nice function that it actually says that. And yeah, as said, feel free to interact via the chat or via the hand raising, and definitely make sure to bring you up front so that you can ask a question. Other than that, thanks so much, Jan and Eri, for being here. Jan, you are the co-founder and CTO of Code Chrysalis, and Eri, you're the career coach and outcomes lead of Code Chrysalis. I'm not going to give any further introduction of you both. You're going to take that in your own hands. And yeah, I look forward to your short presentation about Code Chrysalis. And the floor is yours, basically. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Eri, you want to introduce yourself first?
Okay, yeah, I'll start the dances. So hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all. My name is Eri. I am Japanese, but I have lived in different parts of the world throughout my life. Most recently in Italy. My professional background is in education and tech. Prior to coming to work at Code Chrysalis, I was actually working as HR at a tech company. They were doing autonomous driving, very interesting. And I was doing many different things, anywhere from doing recruiting. We were hiring a lot of very talented engineers from around the world, onboarding. We were also developing some performance systems. And I was also kind of like the person who took care of people, especially people who had just come to work in Japan. I don't know if it's like this for you, but many people come to Japan. They don't know how to open up a bank account. Where do you go? Like, I know, where do you go to register your address? So I would also help a lot of people out, and also just talking about their careers. This has been a common theme for me. I really enjoy consulting and helping people out, finding their own paths. And this is how I kind of got into working at Code Chrysalis. So right now I am the outcomes lead, or the career support lead, where I help out the students get ready for their job hunt. And also when they graduate, when they actually do the job hunt, I am there to help them out throughout the process. I've been very lucky to be just working with so many talented graduates. We have so many people just working in very interesting companies at this point. And I think I've helped out more than 100 people at this point. I think a bit more even. And yeah, I really love what I do. So I'm really looking forward to talking to you all. If you have any questions, feel free to let us know, but that's about it, I think. Nice to meet you all.
Hey everyone, so my name's Yan. I am Chinese, but I grew up in the US, and I've also lived in a bunch of other places like Singapore and in Europe as well. So I actually did not study software engineering at all. In university, like all of you, I was a humanities major. I studied economics and Arabic as well. So I loved languages, and I really wanted to go into some kind of like business, and really never thought that I would be in any way associated with technology. My first job was in finance, and because I really didn't like it, I started really looking and getting inspired by what was happening in tech. Like, you know, there were all these different companies popping up, these different, like these new ways of doing business over the internet that was really changing the way that we were, you know, living or seeing what was possible. So I kind of took a big leap and decided to change my career. So from not really knowing anything, I started learning how to code. That quickly developed into a hobby, and then something that I realized, like, I like this a lot more than what I'm currently doing. So I ended up quitting my job in finance, moving to Silicon Valley, and I found a job as a software engineer. And I did that while going through this thing called a boot camp. And at the time, these were not around, these were not really a thing at all. Like, they were new. They had just kind of this idea that you could change your career in a few short months was this like novel idea at the time. But I ended up doing one of those, finding a job as a software engineer at a machine learning data science startup. And yeah, that's history. So throughout this kind of career journey of mine, I think I really lucked out on the different decisions that I made. I had people who were giving me really good advice that I followed, and so I thought my transition was relatively smooth and was relatively fast. And that's when I got really into helping people make career changes, and then also on the education side of things. So started to really become interested in not just coding, but also teaching coding. So while working as a software engineer, I was teaching coding part-time for fun. And that led to me actually starting a coding bootcamp in the Middle East. And then in about 2017, I started Code Chrysalis in Tokyo. And so now we've graduated hundreds of software engineers. We also help large companies train up their engineering teams as well. So we've worked with companies like Mercari, some of the NTTs, and places like that. So I'm really excited to talk more about that, that it is possible to have a career in tech, even if you don't come from a technical background. And yeah, if you have any questions, would love to hear them. I think when I was considering making a transition to tech, there weren't a lot of resources or places to go to. So I hope that I can become a resource for all of you. Thanks.
Thanks so much, you two. I think that is a perfect introduction just to kind of emphasize that you don't need to be studying coding in order to go into tech. And I think Jen and Eri will go into that a little bit more of how to do that in the next minutes. But before that, we also want to kind of quickly get to know you. So I start a poll. I would ask all of you to kind of answer these questions quickly, if that's okay, because we want to know if what your current major is, or what your major at least was, and if you've tried coding before, and do you actually know what software engineers do? That would also be something interesting to see. I can see already a couple of people putting the answers in. Can you see live as well the answers, or am I the only one? I'm actually not sure.
I think you might be the only one.
I'm the only one. Okay, so I can see that half of the people, more than half, have now answered. So I give it a couple of more seconds. Yeah, and what's with the rest? A couple of more. And giving you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And that's it. So I'm going to share the results. These are the results. I hope you can see them now. Pretty even with the majors. These are the only 3 majors that the university currently offers in English. So you can see politics, economics, and digital business and innovation, which is some kind of more tech-oriented major for sure. Many have not tried coding. Some of them have. It was difficult for them though to keep on studying, and most people believe that they have an idea of what a software engineer is. So I hope this is helpful. Let's see if they will, what kind of new thing they might learn about coding and what a software engineer does. I'll leave that to you both.
Yeah, I thought maybe we could start with just a little introduction of Code Chrysalis and what it is, what a bootcamp is. So I have some slides that I would like to share. All right, I hope everyone can see this. Okay, so Code Chrysalis, we are a coding bootcamp in Tokyo, but we have classes online as well. We have a few missions in what we do. The first one is to create engineering leaders. When people talk about software engineers, they typically just talk about technical skills. Like what languages does what programming languages does that person know? What technologies does she know, etc. But what was really surprising to me when I made a switch into the career was there were a lot of other things that I needed to know as well besides technical things. And these were things like communication and autonomy and empathy. And they actually had a bigger bearing on my career. And so I thought like people should know about that when they're deciding to change into this career path. So we incorporate that into our curriculum and our program. We also want to get more women interested in tech. A very common, I think, phrase that I hear women say or sentence that women say is like, oh, I'm not technical. And even a lot of men say this as well. But I mean, we live in 2021, right? All of you are watching this on Zoom. All of you use your phone, your computer. So we are actually very, very technical, and just shifting that mindset into accepting that like we can use technology and this is something that we should not be scared of and we should embrace. I think that's a really important mindset to change. And we want to build community. So we do a lot of events. I'll actually talk about an event coming up, but we really think that information should be shared freely. And we really like to create a supportive environment where people feel like they can get the answers and information that they need. So we have a few types of courses, really like kind of two types. The first is for those who want to become software engineers. We have a program called the Immersive, and it's available in a full-time and a part-time format. And so those are for people these programs are for people who want to become software engineers. So either, hey, I want to become a software engineer, or I want to have the skills of a professional software engineer. So the immersives are for people who have that intention. Of course, we also have beginner courses. So we have our foundations course. These are 5-week and 10-week classes, depending on the intensity that you would like. And they're for complete beginners who are just curious about coding. So I want to talk a little bit about those two different types of classes. The first one we have foundations. It's available in a few different formats. So we have everything available in both English and Japanese. Right now, all of our foundations courses are only available remotely, given the state of the situation here in Tokyo. But they're available remotely. We have them in both 5 weeks and 10 weeks, or you can take something called Foundations Lite. It is a self-paced version of our foundations class. So in our foundations class, we have like live classes. So every, certain times of the week, you have to be on Zoom for your class. But for those who have harder schedules, if you're working, if you're taking other classes, we also have a self-paced version. So we have these pre-recorded lectures that you can watch and go through the course on your own at your own pace. So for Foundations and Foundations Lite, by the end of the course, you'll have created a bunch of simple websites and little projects. So we have like a cool little Pokemon app that you can make. Some other people make games. A lot of people make sort of like tracking apps or calculator type apps. It's a really good way to gain an understanding of what coding is like and get into that developer or that engineer mindset, like be able to think like an engineer. And in fact, a lot of people who join our foundations class, they don't intend to be software engineers, but they work with software engineers, or they work in tech companies, or they do something a little technical at work. And this class has been really great in helping them understand what they do a little bit more. And then also our foundations class is really popular for those who do want to make the full career change. So to do our immersive course and become software engineers. In general, our courses are very interactive and communicative, and the way that we teach is more focused on getting you to change the way that you are learning and thinking, and to focus on having a more engineer-like kind of way of thinking. Another really great thing that I love about our course is all of our instructors are former career changers. So all of our instructors started out doing something completely different, learned how to code, did our immersive program, and are now working as software engineers. So you're getting taught by people who understand what it's like to be learning how to code as an adult, because it's very different learning as an adult versus learning when you're a kid. For those interested in doing that full career change, so if you're like, I think these are really good skills to have, I want to become a software engineer, we have our immersive courses. And again, it's available in both full-time and part-time. The part-time is completely remote. The full-time is on-site. And even though the full-time is 12 weeks and the part-time is 26 weeks, both of those courses come with an 8-week remote prep component. So there's also 8 weeks on top of that you get stuff to do, like homework to finish, assessments to pass, and things like that. So for the immersive, we are very focused on career longevity. And I think that's what separates us out from all the other boot camps that are out there. We're focused a lot on making sure that not only can you find a job, that you're going to be increasing your career. You're going to be helping grow your own career. And part of that is actually, Eri's role, which is career support. So we actually offer lifetime career support. Our graduates who get their first job, second job, third job, we are always available to talk about everything from salary negotiation to looking over your resume, all that sort of stuff. And like I talked about before, the course in general is focused on these soft skills. So being able to understand what it's like to work as a software engineer besides just coding. And that was just as, if not more important than being able to code. So in order to get into our program for the immersive, so for foundations, this doesn't apply, but for the immersive, we also expect you to have learned enough on your own to be able to get in. And so we want to make sure that you know you are making the right choice, right? We want you to put in some effort, make sure that you know the investment that you're going to be making and that you're ready for it. Because, I mean, if you take a look at our program, it's full-time, 12 weeks if you do the full-time version. It's 26 weeks if you do the part-time version, and it's not a cheap program, right? We are about 1.32 million yen, which is about a little bit more than 10,000 USD. It's a lot of money, right? And for most people, they're stopping their jobs or putting a huge pause in their life to be able to do it. And so we want to make sure that before you do all of that, before you quit your job and like hand us over a bunch of money, that you're serious about this decision that you're making. You're ready to put in the work needed, because it's not an easy program. Making a career change in this short of amount of time is tough. And we want to make sure that people are ready for that. So I'm happy to talk about that. I'm going to wrap this up. We have classes starting. So for the immersive, we've got a class starting in November. We also have a part-time version starting in January of next year. For foundations, we've got classes starting next month if you're interested. And also, I'm actually going to be doing a free workshop, 3 workshops actually. It's a part-time series. And the first one starts in 2 days. It starts on Thursday. They're absolutely free. You get to have a little bit of it's basically a sneak peek into our foundations class and what that might be like. So if you're interested in learning how to code, I've got a free course that you can attend. It's just 3 Thursdays. It's 3 Thursdays. So for the next 3 weeks on your Thursdays, clear that off. And also we're still in the middle of a pandemic. So I don't think you're going to be going out to eat anytime soon for dinner. So spend your Thursday evening hanging out with me and learn how to code. Also, if you're in Japan, it's just way too hot to go outside. So stay indoors, turn the AC on, hang out with me. If you have any questions, you can, you can just ask us in the Q&A. And also follow us on social media. We post a lot on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. We try to post on Facebook, but none of us like Facebook. And we also have a lot of different events on Meetup. And yeah, there's an email there if you have any other questions that you want to ask. And yes, that took a long time. I do apologize. Let's get to the Q&A. I'm going to stop talking.
Thanks so much, Jan. Thanks so much for the great presentation. I think now everyone got an idea of what the bootcamp is, what you have to offer, and basically, have a bit of an idea of what Code Chrysalis is, right? So now we're going to go into the bit more Q&A part. So all of you who are here, you can also ask your questions, but I'll definitely start it off with a couple of basic questions, since now it's become kind of interesting to know maybe how the program is structured, what a software engineer is, how can people actually do the career change in the end, because I mean, they can join the courses, but they still maybe not know what's going to happen afterwards. So it now focuses more on your questions and your potential transition. Also, I mean, if you are a student at the moment, I know that some of you are students, this might be something to think of in the future, because I think university teaches one to kind of stay always in one career track and kind of doesn't allow you sometimes to think outside of the box. But we live in a world where career changes are possible, and Eri and Jan are the perfect example of that. And it will never be too late to learn something new like coding. So without any further ado, I'd ask the first question maybe and start by a simple question and that might be not something lots of people know. Why is actually the tech sector or the coding sector so interesting to go into as a career compared to other careers potentially? Maybe you can also talk about your own fascination or motivation about the topic.
Yeah, I guess for me, when I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, and I think a lot of us are in that or find ourselves in that situation, because for me, I chose my university major before I was 18, right? Like I was like, okay, everyone told me to do economics, and I think I was studying Arabic in high school, so I was like, oh, Arabic is interesting, and so I thought, okay, in university I'll just study economics and Arabic, and so, that kind of led me on this finance path. And then when I finally landed in finance, I realized that, I didn't really know anything about what the job actually was like, even though that was what I had been preparing for the past 4 years in university. And I think a lot of people end up in that kind of like, you feel like you're on this road and you're not really interested in continuing on this road, but you also don't know what else is out there. For me, I found tech really interesting because there really isn't a tech industry per se, because everything is tech now, right? Like every industry needs technology. And so that to me was really attractive, because I thought, well, if I learned the skills to code, then I could theoretically go into a lot of different industries. So that was the first kind of benefit of knowing how to code was just being able to try so many different industries. The second one was honestly the freedom and independence, because in my finance job, I was doing, I was in a commodities trading company, and I felt like the only other place that I could go to was like a competitor of ours. And it was really, you know, in that industry, everyone just sort of like changes chairs, you know, like you'll go to like your colleagues will like go to another company, and then they're like a shuffle of the same people. So I was like, there's really not going to be anything too much different if I go to a competitor, right? I already know several of them. Like, you know, some of them used to work at my company, and there's no difference. And so I felt really stuck, like, wow, this is all I can do. I can just kind of like play musical chairs with these 5 companies that, you know, have the same position. And so with coding, I thought like, if I can code, I can have the freedom to change companies and jobs more easily, because everyone needs a coder. And also, I think like it's such an in-demand skill that I also knew that, hey, if I stopped doing something to try something else, like to start a company, if that didn't work out, I can always fall back on my coding skills, right? So I can take a part-time job and do something else, or so it just gave me that kind of like life flexibility as well that I needed. And third, it's cool to be able to just make something. Like coding is incredibly accessible, right? If you think about like something like mechanical engineering or electrical engineering, in order to do that stuff, you need like machinery, right? You need to be able to like solder stuff together. You've got to go and buy the parts, and it can become quite expensive to just try stuff and experiment. For coding, you just need a computer, and more, you don't even need like that advanced of a computer. And so I thought like this democratization of building is pretty incredible, right? And now we hear of like, you know, a 14-year-old kid building like this incredible product just for fun after school. So I think that power also was really attractive to me. So yeah, those 3 things are why I thought coding was great, tech was great. Yeah.
Maybe I give Eri the chance as well.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, so you know, I've been helping out many graduates at this point who come into this program and they do the job hunt, and I think that many of the things that Yan has just said are pretty common reasons why. So, you know, one is because many people who come take the program are already in Japan, and many are as foreigners. So they feel like maybe they're kind of getting stuck in this job that they found without really thinking about the trajectory of where they were going. So they wanted to get out. Second one was, you know, they wanted to have more flexibility. So sometimes the jobs that they had did not have a lot of flexibility, and they wanted to be able to work from home. I mean, now, you know, there are more people doing it, but tech has always been more flexible as an industry. So they find that you know, if they can get into it, that would give them that chance of being able to work from home or wherever they wanted to. I think another thing that people mentioned in the past are, especially for people who live in Japan as foreigners, is one day I might go home or I might move to another country. I don't know. But if I know how to code, I can work basically wherever. This is what Yan also said about tech being everywhere. It's not just a tech industry anymore. Tech is everywhere, also including, you know, across borders. So if you are able to learn Python, for example, or JavaScript, those languages are used also in other sectors and companies. So if you essentially learn those, you will be hireable across borders. So I think that's another reason why the other graduates invest in learning how to code. I also see that for many people, they just love, they have this passion for creating something. I've met a lot of people who maybe were doing like sales or like marketing, and they realize, well, you know, I keep like trying to sell this product of the company, but I never get to work with the actual product. I want to be able to make change in this world, make a direct impact by making something. And I noticed that there are many, many passionate students who come to our school because they have that intention. I want to learn how to code because I want this kind of product to be out in the world. And that's what exactly people do. I noticed that even after they graduate, they get together with other graduates or with, they find other engineers and they create a product. And I think it's an amazing thing that we're seeing right now. So I think that's another thing that I can say. And I think with regards to like being in Japan, Japan has been, having a lot of difficulty in hiring technical engineers for some time now. This is way before the pandemic. And that's why in the tech industry, now there are Japanese companies hiring foreign candidates, so outside of Japan. So they bring in these technical candidates because they just can't find enough people in Japan. So this is also a great timing. Considering that if you are already in the country or you have a chance to be here or you have experience studying in Japan, people will want to know, are more likely want to be able to talk to you because you have some connection with Japan. So if that's something that you're interested in, I do definitely think that knowing how to code and your experience of having worked or studied in Japan will be very useful.
Thanks so much, guys. I think that gave definitely a little bit more insight. I could see a private question that I've received. I think that was meant for everyone, but it connects to something that I wanted to ask next, and what you've touched upon as well. What kind of people are joining actually your bootcamp? From what kind of field, sector? Do they already have some prior knowledge of coding? Like, do they actually need to know coding before entering your immersive program? And maybe you can a little bit talk about the ones you've, maybe you can mention a couple of people and also connect it with your success stories as Yen just shared in the chat if you want to.
Yeah, do you want to share that story, maybe, Yen? Because I know you posted about Lashon in the...
Oh yeah, I did, because you were talking about like people really wanting to build things, and the first person that I thought of was Lashon. So we had a graduate named Lashon who went through our program just last year. Like she graduated like early this year. Anyhow, she wanted to, of course, become a software engineer, but even before, she was like, I want to learn how to code because I want to build something useful, especially for foreigners in Japan. And so when the pandemic hit, and all of this happened, when vaccines were getting distributed in Japan, I think if you don't speak Japanese, it was a little difficult finding this information. So she actually created a list of clinics that had cancellation lists online. And it's a very simple idea, but it grew a lot. And so I think at the peak, it was getting like over 1 million hits a day. And just an example of, and she made it also in just a few days. So it's an example of, I think, what like the power of code and being able to take these simple ideas, like a list of clinics with cancellation lists, right? Being able to take these simple ideas and actually executing them and actually creating them. And so especially on Twitter, you can see like just the amount of people who have been using this product. I think countless, we're guessing like thousands of people have used this to get vaccinated from COVID. So really exciting. In terms of the backgrounds of our students, I don't know, Eri, if you have the exact percentages off the top of your head, but the majority of our students don't come from a technical background for the immersive. Eri, do you have the exact numbers?
I mean, I think it's at this point maybe like less than a third. I mean, not many. So I think people who were people who were in software engineering or in engineering before coming to our program. These are people who in Japan are called like system engineers or system integrators. So basically people who work in large Japanese companies. So they are engineers, but they often use very, very old technology, like COBOL, for example. So they are kind of stuck in the sense that they are tied to this technology that is outdated in the industry, So they come to a program because we teach JavaScript, or we base our program on a very new technology. So there are people who come to take it. And then, as Yan just said, yeah, basically, mostly the rest, the 2/3 of our students right now are from non-technical backgrounds, meaning anywhere from teachers, managers. Yeah, we've also had like ballet dancers. Yeah, very different walks of life. Very different.
Yeah, ballet dancers plural. I think we've had like 3 or
Yeah.
4 professional ballet dancers go through. In our beginner course, we had a sumo wrestler, and it was great. Like he had his like little sumo hairstyle sometimes in like the classes. It was great. Yeah, Lashon, the woman who I just talked about, was an English teacher. So I would say like it's so broad, the backgrounds of our students, but predominantly it's people wanting to make a career change.
And are they in the end also quite successful? I mean, okay, I don't assume they go through a 3-month program and then immediately find a job. There might be some, you know, like 4 or 5 months later or something, sure. But are they actually landing a tech job in the end, or do some as well return to their career to say, hey, I'm going to bring coding into my current career?
I'll let Eri brag about those numbers.
Yeah, so despite COVID, we have been pretty successful in helping our graduates get jobs. So currently it takes about 2 months. I think it's like 60, maybe close to 70. Because of COVID, of course, like last summer, it was a bit challenging. But despite that, even with people who didn't have prior experience, the average number of days that it takes to get a job right now is, I believe, like 65, 60. It's about there. So yeah, it's a little, yeah, it's like 2 months is about the right time, which, you know, if you think about it, even if you were just normally job hunting, it would normally take over a month because of interview process and just, you know, getting in touch with people. So 2 months is not bad at all, actually. And yeah, I think majority of the people who land jobs. So I think right now, I mean, I think it's like 90%. I want to say very close to 90% of the graduates have software engineering roles. Other people, they have, for example, like project manager roles. These are people who oversee different engineering teams because they already had prior managing experience. We also have some like people who have created their own companies after they graduated, but most people end up working as software engineers. Sometimes, so even in the umbrella of engineering, there are people who we call like front-end engineers or back-end engineers. So we have few people who are more focused on those roles. But yes, I would say we're very, very I guess lucky and also just proud to have very excellent graduates at this point.
Yeah, and also we're the only boot camp in Japan that publishes our graduate statistics, our graduate data, and we have a third-party audit it as well. So that data is also looked at to make sure that it is accurate. So we are a part of something called CIRR, and so you can actually find our outcomes data on there. It's called Council on Integrity in Results Reporting, and we're the only ones in Japan right now. We're only the second school in Asia to be a part of this. So yeah, I mean, I think this is what we do, and we definitely have the results that we can vouch for.
Thanks so much. Yeah, that's quite impressive, actually. Also, I think it adds to the all the financial questions that were brought up to kind of bring it back right to the more essential parts. I also could see that there's a couple of questions from, I believe, Anjani. I'd love to give you the word to raise your question directly to the two. You can unmute yourself, by the way, so just feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead. All right, okay. Guess that didn't work. Then I'll just ask it here. So how does, or the ones who finish the boot camp, are they actually able to compete with those who are IT graduates? It's a question I think we discussed before. Somehow it's kind of unbelievable to imagine someone becoming a software engineer and having like a whole new career after 3 months. So for someone compared to that who studied actually for, let's say, 3 years, 4 years when it comes to a master, or even 5, it sounds kind of unbelievable. But is it actually possible? Do they actually compete against these ITlers? Do they have a chance?
Yeah, yeah, I'll take answering this. Yes. So I think what people don't realize is computer science programs don't create software engineers. If they created software engineers, they would be called software engineering programs, right? They're called computer science programs though, and they produce computer scientists. And it's a different field than software engineering. So I also want to be specific. Anjani wrote IT graduates, and I think IT, like saying IT graduates, is a bit older of a term. Now we're a lot more specific because IT has gotten so large, right? So when I see IT graduates, I'm assuming that that they're specifying that they actually mean computer science. So with computer science majors becoming software engineers, the closest analogy that I can give is probably being an economics major and working in trading, or being a math major and becoming an accountant, right? Which is like the stuff that you're learning is relevant, but in terms of being able to do a job, you're still missing a lot of knowledge, a lot of information, right? And so, like if you're a math major becoming an accountant, yes, you're great with numbers, but there's also accounting software, laws, how companies like manage their books. Like there's all of this knowledge that you need to learn on top of your math knowledge. Same thing with computer science versus software engineers. Computer science, you do know how to code, but with software engineering, there's a lot of there's how to actually create software that you need to learn. There's how to work on a team, building the software that you need to learn. There's also a lot of more specialized tooling that you need to learn, things like version control that's not often taught in universities that you need to learn. And so because of that, there is quite a disconnect. And this is where, a school like Code Chrysalis comes in. We're really there because there is a big gap between where computer science graduates are and where you need to be if you want to be a software engineer. And so our program, we have had, I think almost every cohort, we have at least one person with a computer science degree who decides to take our program to kind of bump them to the next level and make them more work ready than with just a computer science degree. Also, we get hired by companies to train up their computer science majors, like their computer science graduates. So I don't want to name the companies, but we've been hired by some well-known companies who hired, a class of people fresh out of some great computer science programs out of top universities, and we run them through almost the exact same curriculum that we run our regular students through. And so, even people graduating from these programs, these computer science programs, like there's still so much that they need to learn. So I think that's one, like people don't realize how big of a gap there is between where people graduate from in university and where they need to be when they start working. The second is technology is everywhere. It's used in so many different ways. And so the people creating it also need to be more diverse. And it's interesting, there's not a lot of occupations where it's like, okay, this is like one type of person that does this, right? If you think of doctors or lawyers, doctors and lawyers have a lot of different personalities and types, and you know, you can be a doctor or a lawyer no matter what your background might be, etc. But for engineers, somehow it's like this particular, like, you're male, you love working alone, being like in the room, like alone, dark, like, you know, just coding. And that's not true. And what makes, I think, our bootcamp graduates really successful is they come from all different kinds of careers. And so when you're a company, you're not just hiring a junior software engineer, you're hiring someone who had an entire career before them. They have work experience. They know what it's like to work in a company, right? Versus hiring someone straight out of university. They've never worked before. There's all of this stuff that they need to learn. And so I think for that, our graduates are really attractive. And honestly, it's really cool stories. Like we had a nurse, a former nurse, change her career, and now she works as a software engineer at a healthcare company, at a health tech company, right? We've had English teachers who changed their career and now they're working at ed tech companies. So I think that kind of like, that kind of persona, that type of person, like you can really only get that hybrid coming out of a boot camp. So I think that's how our graduates are competitive.
And I think that's what makes them unique, right? I think you kind of emphasize that it's right. It's something that everyone should understand. In each career path, it doesn't matter if you were in politics, economics, digital transformation will touch these fields no matter what. I think there's not one sector where it doesn't play a role. And because you are in different various majors, since you already have some work experience in the past, you will bring in something new to it. And you just basically add an additional skill that is very useful these days and for the future, like coding, to your resume, let's say, into your skill set, which you can practice, which you can bring in your own unique personal way, like with the nurse going from being a nurse to working in a health management, you said healthcare pharma company on tech there. I want to give Jess actually the chance to answer to ask his question, and Jess, maybe you can tell us as well why you're here. Maybe that would be also interesting, I think, for us to hear.
Hi, so thank you again, Eri and Yen. Really appreciate the presentation. Actually got me in a really good time because about 4 days ago I just resigned from my job, so I am actually currently looking. So it's really good to hear this kind of information. And yeah, I am kind of interested in checking out the Code Chrysalis Bootcamp. In fact, I do want to check out that trial lesson on Thursday. But my main question is, my plan is to work in Japan in the long term. And this is kind of related to how graduates from your program, how are they compared to graduates of, say, that kind of major? And I'm wondering if there's a specific metric or standard or any type of like assessment system that Japanese companies tend to use in order to, say, check how qualified this certain candidate would be.
Yeah, maybe I can take that question. So thanks so much for your question, Kento. So yes, so companies, when you are applying for jobs, they will typically have an assessment to make sure that the person they're hiring is the right fit for the company. So assessment means also just looking at if you are the right culture fit, which is something that we shouldn't forget, because sometimes people think that, oh, if I know how to code, I can get any job, which is not true. You also need to be the right person for the job. So if you are applying for a job as a software engineer, you can typically expect something like a coding test, which are like timed tests. It can take anywhere from like a couple of hours to an entire day. You can also have a coding assessment or an assignment, which is basically a project. So they might say to you, okay, these are the requirements, go out and build this thing that we want to see. and let's see how you do it. And that might take like a week or something. So these are some common ways. There's also like in online interviews where and someone who has technical knowledge will test you. So they may ask like you to solve something on the spot, ask you questions that relate to your knowledge of code or experience. And those are ways that people understand. And this is actually why, so something just to kind of share an anecdote is I got to know Code Chrysalis because of where I was working before. And I used to interview candidates for an engineering role. And I just coincidentally interviewed someone who was a CC graduate. And I was very skeptical, to be honest, about the quality of this person's education and how much they could do. But long story short, I was very impressed. The company for the first time, so till then we had only hired people who had masters and PhDs, imagine. And we gave an offer to this person who used to be an English teacher. So what happened for me and for us as a company was we realized this person has a lot of potential. And through our interview process, they did very well. And what stuck out to me a lot was that they were able to ask a lot of very good questions. So in that moment, if the question was, are they up to the standard, the technical standard that we wanted, they were very close, but not quite. However, we saw through the interview process, they would ask very good questions to the manager, also to the engineer. And it made us realize that they would be able to catch up very quickly with the kind of interest and passion they had for coding. It was not difficult. And this is why I'm very passionate about the work I do right now, because I went from being very skeptical to being very supportive of this kind of education. And as Jan said earlier, there is a gap between people who come from traditional backgrounds and people who come from boot camps like ours, because the bootcamp is very practical. Like it focuses on what you need to do to get a job. So when you are looking for a job and you're interviewing, companies want to hire people because they want that person to come in and do the job, right? That's why people hire. So if there is that high probability that this person will be able to either catch up really quickly for the job or they are ready to work, that's great. And like I've seen that with people who are highly educated, this is not always a good thing, because when you're working together in the team and someone comes from a very theoretical background, sometimes it can be a hurdle. I'm not sure if anyone has experience, but like working in a team with someone who is so specifically trained in an industry, sometimes they have very, very specific ideas about how certain things should be done. So it becomes a very theoretical debate on how to do things. And then when you talk about the practicality of something, there is something missing there. And I've seen this over and over in where I used to work. So going back to your question, sorry, I kind of went on a tangent there, but there are assessments. So it's not like you're just going to go blindly to a place and say, please hire me because I'm an engineer. Companies will know who they need to hire. And that's the good part, right? They will know how to understand.
Thanks
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jess, for the question as well. Thanks for being here. I could see Uno till a minute ago. I know that we're kind of reaching the time, but I still would like to give Uno the chance to ask a question directly if you want to. Are you still there or? Ah, yes, you just unmuted still.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was lovely. I just had a question in regards to like the educational qualifications you need for the immersive program, for example, SATs or IELTS test results. Do you need to submit any of those for the immersive program?
Nope. Nope. We don't even check if you have a university degree. And in fact, we've had a few people who didn't even go to university that go through our program. I don't think it'll be an issue here because this is a TIU alumni event. But if you do plan on working in Japan and you are not Japanese, or if you don't have citizenship or permanent residency here, in order for you to get a work visa, you will need a bachelor's degree. So that's not a Code Chrysalis requirement, but if you want to work in Japan, you should know that.
Thank you very much.
Una, maybe you can tell us quickly why you're here and if you're currently in Japan.
Well, I'm not currently in Japan, but I'm very interested in coding because there's not a huge market for software engineers in Namibia, and I feel like I want to pioneer that here.
Yeah, very cool. Very impressive.
Awesome.
Thanks. There was one more question. I'm going to ask Eri and Jan, do you still have time to answer that? I think it relates to something that was already answered by you with the IT graduates already, but do you still have a couple of minutes? Yeah, okay. So Vismaya, feel free to ask your question if you're there. Can't see right now.
Hi. Oops. Hi.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Thank you for your presentation. It was great. My question was that like people who graduated from engineering schools like 4 years ago, like they study full-time or part-time 4 years. So like how could we like compare the boot camp with them? Like is there like a competition for them? Like for your graduates from your boot camp?
No, I think I answered that question earlier. I can summarize in case that you missed it. But there is a bit of a difference between, I think, what universities teach and what you need to know for software engineering. And so we focus on that gap and helping bridge that gap for students. And then also for fresh university grads, I think oftentimes they don't have work experience, right? So they get hired directly by a company. And so I think with bootcamp grads, people have either, taken some gap year or gap time, or they've had another career or, have worked doing something else. And so when they're hired by companies, that company not only gets a software engineer, but also someone with just some other life experience, right? Instead of someone just straight out of a university program. So I think those are the two things that make our graduates competitive.
I think if I can also add on to this, I was actually talking to one of the very first graduates of Code Chrysalis, and he was telling me how very interestingly, after he graduated, so now he works at a very, very big tech company that I think everyone knows well. But anyway, the thing that was interesting for me was I asked him, how has going through the bootcamp helped you in your career? Because now it's been several years. Do you see any difference? Like right now you work for this company where a lot of like computer science graduates end up working. Like, do you feel like you're lacking something? Is there anything that we can improve? And he was like, no, actually, it's, you're doing great. One of the things that I really enjoyed was actually the chance to give presentations, because that is part of our curriculum. We ask students to give tech talks, which is basically a presentation about a tech topic that you choose. And he mentioned that when he started working after a few years, he would be invited to these either like study groups or like even like events where he would have to give a presentation as an engineer. And before coming to our school, he had no prior experience. So when he realized that when you start to develop and have experience in the tech industry, if you want to differentiate yourself as an engineer, you need to learn how to speak in public. So he learned that communication skills through our school. And he told me at the time when he was going through the program, he had no idea that was going to be useful, but turned out it was very useful. So he mentioned that to me. I was very surprised to hear that too. So this is maybe like us as a bootcamp, more so the bootcamps in general, but I have noticed that once you start to get the experience as an engineer, having that extra like soft skills makes a very big difference.
Thanks so much, you two. And thanks so much for all the questions that were asked. I'd say the time is up, but I would give both of you, if you want to, some time to leave some final remarks if you want to.
Okay, I guess I'll start. So yeah, thank you everyone for being here tonight. I really hope, wherever you are in your career and your transition phase, or maybe you're, just out of school, I hope that this can help you maybe think about your next path, next step. I know given the time that we live in, venturing into a new chapter in life seems much more challenging and difficult. But yeah, if you ever need any advice, or if you just want to ask questions, please find me. I'm on LinkedIn or different social media. And yeah, I really hope that you'll find a way to find that new step. I personally have also thought a lot about that during the pandemic, and I think a lot of people have. So I hope this was a good chance to at least think about it. Hopefully, if it was the answer that you were looking for, I hope that we will be an option for you to start learning how to code. Hopefully, some of you might join our free trial lesson soon. But yeah, thanks again for being here tonight.
Yeah, come to the free trial lesson. I'll see you there. I'll be leading them and I'm really excited. We don't do them very often. So yeah, sign up, because when am I going to give another one? I don't know. Limited time only.
Thanks so much. Who knows, right? So sign up for the free trial lesson. Jan, Eri, it was a pleasure to have you. Thanks so much for being here. I think, and I believe I speak for all of us, that was really informative, really helpful, and very encouraging as well for the future, I believe, particularly for some people who are thinking about a career change or enhancing their career. So thanks so much. I'm going to post as well the link again to your website just in the chat so that people have it. You can find more information there. This webinar will also be online, of course, the recording. If some of you want to revisit it, we'll post it in the next few days on our YouTube channels. I believe Code Chrysalis is going to do that as well. And other than that, thanks so much again for joining us today, and have a lovely evening, day, and rest of the week, wherever you are in the world.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Bastian.
Thank you so much. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you.